Welcome back to the fourth video in our series, which traces the history of Turf Moor. In today's video, we'll look to take the history of Turf Moor from the start of the Second World War through to the end of the Bob Lord years. The cricket ground and the football ground at Turf Moor were unchanged by the end of the Second World War. At the football ground, the Brunshaw Road stand served as both a physical and symbolic heart of the football stadium. The stand held seating for the rich and standing areas for the poor. Tucked away on the roadside behind these stands were the essential rooms that made the club tick: the players' dressing rooms, board rooms, offices, and medical facilities. This setup made the Brunshaw Road stand more than just a place for fans to watch the game. It was the operational hub where decisions were made, strategies were planned, and players were cared for. The players' tunnel, emerging from the center of this stand, effectively divided the two standing enclosures, which were capable of holding over 6,000 fans. The old cricket field stand, which stood behind the goals to the left of the Brunshaw Road stand, was mainly made out of wooden railway sleepers, and was the only other roofed terrace at the ground. The longside stand, previously referred to as the Star Stand, was not as emblematic in its earlier days as it is recognized today. Its structure was relatively basic during this period. Essentially, the stand was a vast embankment with a mere 10-yard stretch at its forefront that consisted of concrete terracing, extending the entire length of the pitch. This terraced area was equipped with some crush barriers for safety. The majority of the stand's elevation, however, was composed of clinker, a byproduct from coal combustion. There are anecdotes of this clinker still emitting heat during certain matches. Some fans even reportedly used this coal slag as projectiles, targeting players who weren't performing up to paragraph. There's even a tale of players hurling clinker at one another during a heated on-field disagreement. The longside swept around the length of the pitch into the B-hole stand, which was named after the mine on which it had been built. Again, this stand was not as large as it was in later years, as the foundations were not strong enough to take the additional weight. The B-hole stand scoreboard was a simple yet effective system, featuring a wooden hut with metal plates to display the scores. This rudimentary setup was later replaced by a broadcaster's box, elevated on stilts to provide a better vantage point. Across the field at the cricket club, the old pavilion still remained after standing proudly for almost a century. Nestled alongside the bowling green, scoreboard, and practice wickets, it was a cherished symbol of the club's enduring traditions. In the autumn of 1944, the town and supporters were abuzz with a story that would become a tragic chapter in the history of Turf Moor. Edward James Tate, a prominent figure in both the business and sporting circles of Burnley, met a mysterious and untimely end that left the town in shock and sorrow. Tate was former director of a local cotton manufacturing company, and was a director of the club, even serving as the chairman from 1932 to 1935. On that fateful day in October, Tate fell a staggering 45 feet from the roof of the Brunshaw Road stand on the pavement below, grievously injured, but still alive. Despite the best efforts of medical professionals, he succumbed to his injuries in the hospital. An inquest was later held to determine the circumstances of this tragic incident. During the proceedings, it was revealed that a set of ladders had been propped against the stand. However, neither Abel Hudson, the Burnley groundsman, nor Henry Smith, the club secretary, could provide any explanation as to why Tate had climbed onto the roof. The coroner, Mr. Ogden, stated that there was no direct evidence to suggest suicide, leaving the community with more questions than answers. The post-World War II era was a time of significant change and reflection for many, and Turf Moor was no exception. The visit of Sir Winston Churchill to the ground on the 27th of June 1945 was a momentous occasion. The wartime Prime Minister thanked and acknowledged the contribution to the war effort by the people of the town. Ironically, just days after his visit, Churchill would find himself voted out of office. In 1947, the all-time attendance record for a league game was set at Turf Moor, when 52,869 fans packed the stands to watch Burnley take on Blackpool. In the years following World War II, Turf Moor saw a startling transformation, reflecting the broader changes in English football and society. As the men of East Lancashire returned home, the focus again shifted back to sport, and both Burnley FC and the cricket club found themselves at a crossroads. The post-war period was marked by significant infrastructure developments, ambitious projects, and a vision for the future that would reshape Turf Moor into a modern sporting venue. One of the most notable developments was the reconstruction of the Longside Terrace, which originally planned in 1938, but had to be delayed due to the Second World War, was finally completed in 1954. Concrete steps had been slowly built throughout the 20-year period, and this stand was finally completed when the roof was added in 1954 for a whopping £20,000. Burnley's youth players were actively involved in the construction of the Longside, something that would certainly raise questions in today's era. In 1955, under the leadership of infamous chairman Bob Lord, Burnley became one of the first clubs in England to establish a purpose-built training facility. Lord purchased 80 acres of farmland at Gawthorpe Hall called Home Farm, signalling a forward-thinking approach to player development and training methodologies. The self-professed Lord of Burnley's first attempt at a training area away from the pitch was affectionately called the Barn. It was a simple structure built behind the Longside stand. This structure has over time been extended and has provided an indoor playing facility for the first team and the youth department. The structure is still technically there and is now the fan zone. The year 1957 marked a pivotal moment in the history of Turf Moor, as it finally saw the successful installation of permanent floodlights. This was a monumental achievement, especially considering that previous attempts to introduce floodlighting in 1878 and 1891 had been unsuccessful. The new floodlights were ceremoniously switched on during a friendly match against local rivals Blackburn Rovers. The introduction of floodlights had a transformative impact on the club's scheduling capabilities. For the first time, evening games became a viable option, allowing for more flexible kick-off times and opening up new revenue streams. The floodlights also enhanced the spectator experience, making it possible for fans to enjoy games after work or school, thereby increasing attendance and creating a more electric atmosphere. Around the same time, significant changes were also taking place at the B-hole end of the stadium. The stand underwent extensive terracing work, expanding its capacity and improving the viewing experience for fans. Initial plans to add a roof to the stand never came to fruition, as it was discovered that the foundations, having been built on the old B-hole mine, would never have been able to hold the extra weight. There was even an old wives' tale that the stand itself moved due to the jubilations of supporters after a Burnley goal during a game in the 60s. The 1959-60 First Division title success for Burnley had a ripple effect on Turf Moor. The ground hosted its first ever European Cup match on November 16, 1960, against French team Reims. This international exposure necessitated further upgrades, including the construction of the cricket field stand in 1969. The issue of subsidence in the Brunshaw Road stand presented a significant challenge for the club's directors. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, the directors took proactive measures to address the issue by relocating the dressing rooms into the new stand. At the time of its construction, the cricket field stand was considered one of the most advanced in the world. It featured an oil-based central heating system designed to keep supporters warm during games. The system was engineered to circulate hot air around the stand and funnel it through pipes leading directly to the area around the feet of supporters. However, this innovative feature was abandoned within 2 years due to its prohibitive cost. One of the stand's unique features was its location behind the goals, which meant that players entered the field from this point rather than from the halfway line. This gave Turf Moor a distinctive look, and was a break from traditional stadium designs. The stand was officially opened by the Lord Lieutenant of Lancashire. Chairman Bob Lord had grand plans for the total redevelopment of Turf Moor and its surrounding area. He envisioned purchasing the cricket ground to establish a stadium village, complete with a hotel, and what would have been the largest nightclub in Lancashire. By 1970, Lord had successfully acquired a small strip of land running along the length of Brunshaw Road, intended for retail outlets, and a 360-foot area behind the cricket field stand to resituate the floodlights. However, his ambitious plans to buy out the cricket club were met with resistance. Bob Lord's grand vision for a stadium village, complete with retail outlets and entertainment venues, was never realized. This influx of money for the cricket club enabled them to build a new £40,000 pavilion, which was built on the old bowling green and practice wickets. The old pavilion, which had served as the cricket club's headquarters for over a century, was in a dilapidated state, and was held up internally by temporary tubular props, was demolished after the completion of the new pavilion. The concrete terraces in front of the pavilion were also removed, and the area grassed over to integrate seamlessly into the new cricket pitch, which now features a completely circular playing area. The scorebox, which stood on the land purchased by Burnley Football Club, was moved to an area close to Belvedere Road, where it still stands today. Bob Lord, ever the visionary, wasn't content with just structural improvements to Turf Moor's stands. In 1974, he financed a comprehensive overhaul of the pitch itself. The pitch was raised and the infamous slope, which had been a unique but challenging feature of Turf Moor since the club's arrival, was finally removed. He then replaced the Brunshaw Road structure with the Bob Lord stand in 1974. Inaugurated by former Prime Minister Edward Heath, the stand could hold 2,500 fans and cost £450,000. However, the development of this stand had an impact on the pitch as sales of players, most notably Martin Dobson, being sold to finance the development. Even now the stand is called the Martin Dobson stand affectionately by older supporters. The stand, despite its relatively small size, serves multiple important functions for the club. It houses the chairman's lounge and serves as the main reception to the ground, making it a focal point for VIPs, media, and special guests. Originally, the changing rooms were also planned to be located here, but that idea was eventually shelved. Instead, the area was transformed into the Centre Spot nightclub and lounge. Interestingly, the stand was built with future expansion in mind. Its foundations were designed to accommodate the weight of a second tier, a forward-thinking move that left the door open for future development. In 1975, the floodlights at the ground were replaced at a cost of £30,000, a significant investment at the time. These new lights were inaugurated during a Lancashire schoolboys match in February of that year, marking another step in the modernisation of the facility. Bob Lord, a figure who evokes polarising opinions within the Burnley community, undeniably left an indelible mark on the town's sporting landscape. During his 30-year tenure, he was instrumental in transforming both the cricket club and the football club, modernising their facilities, and pushing them into new eras of competitiveness and relevance. Lord's vision was ambitious and far-reaching. He spearheaded significant infrastructure changes, from the construction of new stands to the implementation of modern amenities. His influence extended beyond the football pitch, impacting the cricket ground as well. He was a man of action, willing to make the tough decisions that he believed would propel the clubs into the future. However, the path to modernization was not without its sacrifices, and the financial burden of these extensive renovations and developments weighed heavily on the football club even beyond Bob Lord's years at the club. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe for more content like this in the future.